Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to the very first installment of Was It the Best? Yes, on this series of videos, we're going to take a look at award-winning films and ask the simple question, was it the best? In the case of our first episode here, we're going back to what is considered the best year Hollywood ever had, the year 1939. And what's the question we have here, Greg?
Well, I think our question was mainly about what did the Academy make the right decision for Best Actor?
Yes.
I don't think anybody can deny that Gone with the Wind was the best picture.
Yes, I definitely agree. But you look at stuff like this, and basically our working idea is that not everyone agrees with what an academy, a committee, an association, something like that might vote to be the winner, which is, of course, the majority of voters. Because one thing that really gets me, and I've said it time and time again, is in 2010 or 2011, for films in 2010, is the fact that The Social Network did not win, and I've already had a great suggestion from someone else about something we could do in the future. So everyone has an opinion as to this sort of thing. But getting back on point, we're going to look at Best Actor of 1939. Now, the nominees, and forgive me, I'm going to read a list here. The nominees are Clark Gable for Gone with the Wind, Laurence Olivier, Wuthering Heights, Mickey Rooney, Babes in Arms, Jimmy Stewart, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And the winner ended up being Robert Donat for Goodbye, Mr. Chips. Now, in preparation for this, we've of course seen Gone with the Wind. We watched Goodbye, Mr. Chips, and we watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which it was your first time seeing that last movie, and it was my second time seeing that movie.
Good movie.
Yes, it was a really good movie. Jimmy Stewart there's no debating, he's one of the greatest actors of all time. I mean, it's like they wrote movies around Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
I mean, they would write westerns and suspense films and whatever around him. I mean, but suffice it to say, he's one of the greatest actors of all time. We didn't watch the ones with Laurence Olivier and Mickey Rooney, although ironically, afterwards, we listened to a radio show that adapted the story of Goodbye, Mr. Chips into a radio program in which Laurence Olivier played Mr. Chipping. That was really strange, considering that he was in another nominated film from that year opposite that, Let's get to Robert Donat's performance in Goodbye, Mr. Chips. What did you think of it?
I thought it was great because he played Mr. Chipping at all of these different ages, and he was believable at all of them. He really seemed like he was aging throughout this movie, even though he really wasn't.
Yes, and that's not easy. I mean, makeup prosthetics can give you the look of it, but unless you can be in character and really convince the audience that you're at all these different stages of life, that then it's all for naught.
I think it kind of reminds me of this year's Best Actor winner,
Gary Oldman. Yes,
I mean, Gary Oldman became Winston Churchill, and I think Robert Donat became Mr. Chipping.
Yes, I definitely agree. I mean, the basic plot of Goodbye, Mr. Chips is that you have Mr. Chipping. He ends up at this private school in England. He starts in like the late 19th century, around 1870, something like that.
Yeah.
And he's just teaching class after class after class of these young boys in this private school. And you just see him throughout his career. You're constantly jumping forward in time, and you eventually end up in around the time of World War I. You hear reference to the assassination of the Archduke of Ferdinand that started World War I, and all these boys that he knows goes off and dies for Great Britain. And
Plus, there's a romance along the way.
Oh yeah, Greer Garson was great in that movie, and she was also nominated for Best Actress. I see it on the list here. Of course, Vivien Leigh won that for Gone with the Wind, and I don't think there's any debating Scarlett O'Hara. That performance winning, Vivien Leigh was definitely deserving of that Oscar. But here's the thing: is that was Clark Gable's performance as Rhett Butler better than Robert Donat as Mr. Chipping?
I mean, Clark Gable was great as Rhett Butler, but for me, I mean, it just felt like he was Clark Gable. He was.
Well, isn't that in the same light that Jimmy Stewart was Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I mean, there was so much of himself in that role. I felt like it wasn't. While he was great in that role, I don't feel like it was as much of a challenge as Mr. Chipping was, because it was so radically different.
Do you think Clark Gable just naturally plays that Southern accent really well, that Southern charm kind of person that Rhett Butler was?
I mean, there was a lot of himself in that role, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is it comes naturally to him, right?
And I'm not saying that his performance was bad. I mean, it was a great performance. He was Clark Gable on the screen, and you can't pull that away from what you were seeing on the screen. You're seeing Clark Gable playing Rhett Butler. You're not seeing Rhett Butler,
Frankly, my Greg, I don't give a damn. I'm sorry. I just had to work that in there somehow, So you would be in agreement with how the majority of voters voted that Robert Donat did deserve to win the Best Actor Oscar.
I thought it was worthy.
Many people could think it's an extraordinary snub that Clark Gable didn't win. I mean, what would you say to those people that have that opinion? Would you say the same thing?
I would say the same thing, yeah. I mean, while he was great, he was essentially himself on that screen.
I think, and there's no way we'll ever know the answer to this question, but I'd be personally interested to find out just how the votes went, But unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever know what that is, because and that's another debate. Now, mind you, the disclaimer, this information's on Wikipedia, so it may or may not be true. I'll say it's rumored, okay? And just qualify it like that. The rumor is that the list of winners, a fairly accurate list of winners, was printed before the ceremony in the Los Angeles Times leading up to the Academy Awards ceremony when it happened on a night in 1940. That really brought into question how the secret balloting was working, and I mean, it kind of takes the fun out of the suspense leading up to giving an award, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're off topic just a little bit here, but
after that, everything got a lot more secret.
Yeah, you end up with Envelope Gate. 77 years later. But anyway, my opinion, you've given yours, let me give mine.
Yeah.
It's a very tough choice. It really is, because all three of those performances are the leading performances. I don't think the other two would impress me as much. I mean, Wuthering Heights is just a standard romance story, It's kind of it's an easy period piece to play, in my opinion. And Mickey Rooney, sorry if you're a Mickey Rooney fan, but he never struck me as one of the best actors of all time. He always came off. He always came off as always a bit of a spoiled brat to me when he was playing in his younger years in films.
In all those Judy Garland movies.
Yeah. I mean, he was typecast just a little bit for my taste. And he tried to break out of that typecast later in his career, but that's a story for another day. So do I agree? I gotta disagree with you.
Really?
I think Clark Gable should have won the Oscar, because for the length of film, that was this was really the first big epic movie that was ever attempted, on such a grand scale in terms of in color and with sound. I mean, there were epics in the silent era, yes. I mean, you had Ben-Hur in 1925, but you had epics in the silent era. They were great, but you didn't really have a big sprawling epic like this that had ever been attempted before. And it's just, I think, on the scale of film, that not only was it the best picture, but it had the best actor and the best actress and a lot of the best everything else. I mean, it won best screenplay. Let me scroll through here and see what awards it did win. Best art direction, best cinematography, color, best film editing. I mean, all very noteworthy awards. I mean, I think it won the most Oscars that year. Yep, 8 Academy Awards. So there you are. So we disagree about this, is what it boils down to. I mean, just for the record, he thought it was right. I thought it was wrong. But we'll leave it at that. We'll agree to disagree. All right, so that's going to do it for our first installment of Was It the Best? And we'll have another one next month. Stay tuned for that. Join us next week for our next weekly vlog, okay?
Yep.
And if you're new to this channel,
like us, comment, subscribe, notification bell, all that stuff.
If you hit the notification bell, you get the notifications when the new videos go up. So, yeah, it's really handy if you do that, so you won't miss one. All right. We love you guys. Thank you for joining us. Bye.